Question of the day. What is your favorite game that has an IP or a theme that you're not totally familiar with, but it looks like it is part of something else? Case in point, I believe the Red Rising game from Stonemaier was based on something else. That takes us to what we're looking at today, Weirdwood Manor. This is a story narrative universe set in I think a YA or kids fiction books, all about Weirdwood Manor and Lady Weirdwood, and you play as these kids trying to save Lady Weirdwood against these evil monsters as you try to go around the house and do things. So this is a kind of worker movement, cooperative, dungeon crawly fighting game set in this universe. So let's take a look at Weirdwood Manor right now. Alright, welcome to Weirdwood Manor. This is a cooperative game in which you are trying to fight scarabs, fight a fey monster, different rules for each one, protect Lady Weirdwood, and clear Weirdwood Manor of all the bad guys in it. You're all going to have a personal player board here with all the characters who have very different powers. Some of them are really rule-breaky and change the game completely, but a couple things to note here. This is Wally. Normally you'll put dice here as you craft them to use in your dice pool. Wally's different. Wally steals dice from the enemies, which is great because that is not just offensive, but it's double offensive because it takes away their defense as well. So if you steal a blue dice from a scarab, that means not only can they not attack you, they can't defend either. It's a pretty great little thing he does. This is your experience track here. Anytime you get experience, you'll move up these 3 tracks, collecting the bonuses, and when you get to the end, you'll gain that. Anytime you see the little small numbers here in purple or pink, I don't know what you call that, you'll gain that many experience. This is your life meter here. It's also how many cards you can have at the end of your turn, and then 3 player powers. Now at the top here are 4 different times of day. Now what's interesting about this board is it will rotate the daytime. Once you pass all the way through the night to the next morning, you'll also rotate the entire day of this ring. You think, well, what does that change? Well, notice that the doors are attached to these inner rings. So you may find yourself currently, that room up there is blocked off. This room here is blocked off. You couldn't get into it from walking because there's no door. But when it rotates around to the next one, that now becomes available. At the beginning of the game, it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. But as you continue to spin these, the combinations are going to get a little bit more chaotic. Now, some of these rooms are turned over because of what's called blight. If there are any 2 scarabs in a room at one time, you flip the thing over. Once you've killed all the scarabs there, taking either 1 experience point and a scarab as a resource or 2 experience points, you can then spend the amount of resources it calls for to flip it back over and gain the experience, which means that room is now active. Anytime you end your movement in a room, you can take that power action, including times where you can move twice, which is pretty great. It's a way to get resources, a way to get the companions down here. You can also get these other cards here, which are the Warden Tactic cards, which are pretty cool. They give you special little powers. They're one-time uses, or some of them are permanent. And then you have your main boss here. Ours is, this time, is the Min Wraith. Now this plays differently than the Chaos Ogre completely. You'll notice their boards are completely different. This one has a blight threat marker where you can lose by having the blight all the way up. This one, anytime he heals, Lady Weirdwood takes a damage, basically sucking the life force. But you can heal Lady Weirdwood by giving her some of your power, your health, when you're in the room with her, to boost her up to where she gets movement and swords available to you to fight, which is pretty great. Now, you're going to be taking your turns, laying an action card down into one of the times of day. Let's just say we're currently in dawn, but you have a card here already, and you have a card here already. Then let's say you play this card here on the sunset. You're going to have to spin this all the way around to the first sunset, which means the day is speeding up pretty quickly. The enemy will also, when they activate, do similar things. This will spin the time 4 spaces, and then you'll flip it over and do the action on it. So the Min Wraith moves through walls, he kind of teleports. And he's actually really hard to hit. He's got a lot of defense die, which is why I recommend playing Wally here, because when you attack with Wally, you can take away some of those defense die to attack him with, which allows you to not only get more power against him, but it takes away some of those defenses. Because on a black dice, it's 2 shields, 2 shields, 2 shields, 1 shield, 1 shield, no shield. So it's very hard to hit the Min Wraith. You'll keep playing until one of the in-game triggers happens, in the sense of you lose by Lady Weirdwood dying, by your characters dying. Well, you can't die, sorry. You'll play to the end of the game till one of the in-game triggers. Either you win by defeating the Fey monster, or Lady Weirdwood dies, or one of the other options for, depending on which Fey monster you're playing, that ends the game. You'll keep playing until that happens. Person with the most points, that's not a thing. You'll keep playing until you win or lose, and that is how you play Weirdwood Manor. All right, that is Weirdwood Manor. So, there's a rubric system I have set up for my reviews on the channel here. We took a break last month doing the top 100s. You saw those. But the way this rubric works, we take a look at concept, board layout, mechanics, art direction, art, components, gameplay rulebook, and we compile all those together to get an average score. So first of all, the concept. I'm going to give this a 7 because I don't know much about this world, but I also, it doesn't just jump out at me. It's not like you told me that there was a Tolkien or a C.S. Lewis type game. We're going to play that. That'd be a totally different thing. So 7, it's fine. You know, I like the different characters. They seem interesting. The different enemies seem really interesting. The board layout's an 8 as well. So I like this, the board layout is an 8, and I like that because the way the board is set up, it changes different each time you play. Different rooms go out there, which give you different powers and things like that, so it's really neat. Plus, I like the fact that it is a worker placement almost type thing, or a worker movement. I think more like the colonists, where you move around the board and take the action of the room that you're in. Well, this is interesting because you might have scarabs there, which you got to defeat the scarabs in order to take the action. So it can actually be pretty beneficial. As far as the mechanics go, I really like how each character plays differently than other characters. And each boss monster plays completely differently, including having a totally different player board where certain things matter. Like Blight matters much more to one of them, the bosses, than it does the other ones. So mechanics are an 8.5. Art direction is an 8. Everything is pretty straightforward as far as the symbology. If you do need to look, you can look in the rulebook pretty simply there. The art in this game, I give it 8.5, and components. Now, I really like how the player boards look and how the art on the cards look. It's just a good looking game when it comes to art. It's this cutesy style art. I don't know if this is what it is for the covers of the books or things like that, but I really like this style. It's a really kind of cartoonized, but also scary at the same time. The boss monsters look really great, and it's just a good-looking game. So there's the art is an 8.5. Gameplay is an 8. Solid, just allows you to play as your character, get items, get resources, spend those resources on powers. It's kind of like, it's not quite like Descent or something like that where it's super heavy. It's actually a little bit lighter than that, but it does give you quite a bit of options like... what's that giant game? Gloomhaven, right? Where you have your characters and you can do different stuff based on that. It's like a lighter version of that because you can save your resources to spend them on one great power or hold off. You can get the scarabs to either spend them for your player powers or you can spend them as part of some of the actions, right? The rule book is an 8.5. It's actually a really great rule book. It gives you rules on how to play everybody, how to do the scarab phase, how to fight everybody. It's really well done, and I really like that. I like how you can craft your dice for each character to get more and more dice, and I especially like the power of that one character to steal dice of the dice pool from the enemy. That is a really underrated power. If you don't know that, if you haven't played that yet, definitely play the one who steals the dice. So all in all, aggregated together, that gives me a total of 8.0. That is Weirdwood Manor. Big fan, really great game, made our top 10 of the year. If you've seen that, or if you haven't seen that, it's coming up this week. It is just a blast of a game, Weirdwood Manor. I'm Bryan Drake, and make sure to follow us on X, Instagram at DicestarBryan. Until next time, we'll see you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. And you can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vasel.